Making one more adjustment. All right. Well, let's see if this looks and sounds better for you guys here, but we are live for the RTI Post-Game Show. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to get this link posted everywhere here and make sure it's shared so more people can come in and tune in for it. But I do appreciate all of you coming in and watching for tonight. Won't be a super long one because it's a UAB and there are some other decent games on right now this time of night, so probably won't keep y'all on too long here, but do appreciate you all tuning in. Let me get this link posted elsewhere, so it'll be maybe a minute before if you're watching the replay of this, I'm going to skip ahead just a minute or so here before we get into the action, but just give me a second to share this link. All right, getting this posted. Oops, sorry. All right, well, thank you for whoever are giving us a like. Appreciate that very much. I am Nathaniel Rutherford, the managing editor of RockyTopInsider.com, here for another post-game reaction show. Probably won't be on very long for this one. I know I said the same thing after the Alabama game a few weeks ago, but this time it's not after the Alabama game. It's not as emotional of a game for Tennessee, so I won't be on for super long this time. All right, our post-game show is live. Appreciate all of you who tuned in so far. Appreciate all of you who are going to watch this back later on at a later date. Tennessee gets the 30-7 victory over UAB, a game that I thought coming into it, I didn't expect UAB to win. I picked Tennessee to win. I think the final score I had as my prediction was 27-10. So I mean, I wasn't horribly far off, I guess, but it was a game that I thought Tennessee would probably struggle a little bit in because UAB does have they have a good defense. Granted, their competition was not very good. Their 6 wins this season, none of them had come against teams with winning records, and 4 of their 6 wins were against teams with 0 or 1 victory on the season. So they didn't have a great strength of the schedule. So I thought Tennessee would win, and I didn't really think they needed to be on upset alert. But Tennessee came out and they proved in this game what they didn't prove in week 1 this season, and that was that they could take care of business, they could focus, they would not let a team be a trap game for them. They wouldn't let an inferior opponent, because UAB is an inferior opponent. They're a good Conference USA team. They're a good kind of Group of 5 team. They're a team that should beat Tennessee, and they didn't. I mean, they didn't really stand a chance. If Tennessee had better quarterback play consistently in this game from start to finish, Tennessee wins this pretty easy. I mean, they still won it pretty easy. I'm talking about Tennessee putting up 40 to 50 points in this game if they didn't have some mediocre quarterback play. And we'll get to that here in a second too, because that's definitely worth talking about. Not great quarterback play from Tennessee in this game, and specifically, from Jarrett Garantano. All of you who are watching this, I know not a lot of you are right now, but all of you who are, feel free to leave comments here in the chat. Feel free to give the video a like. Feel free to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We would appreciate all of that very much. I would appreciate the comments and stuff right now so I can kind of interact with you guys here on the show. But I do appreciate all of you tuning in. Tonight, Tennessee gets the victory. They're moving on to 3 more games in the SEC. A month ago, I didn't think bowl eligibility was going to happen for this team. I think a lot of you probably didn't. I think a lot of people thought it was going to be almost a miracle. Almost a miracle for Tennessee to get to a bowl game. Now, they might actually, I don't have it pulled in front of me. They might actually, as far as it's updated yet, but they might actually be favored to get to a bowl game. Whereas a month ago, I mean, it was considered, I think the teamrankings.com, which does a lot of projections and percentages and things like that for game in and game out, and for the season as a whole. I think they had it as a miracle in the 90th percentile as far as finishes for Tennessee on the season. I think to even get to 5-7, and that was after the Florida loss, I believe. It might have been after the Georgia loss. It was one of those two where I think a 6-6 season would have been an absolute miracle. And I think 5-7 was actually in the 90th percentile for Tennessee's season as well. So it's a major improvement from where Tennessee was a month ago. Sorry, posting this link one more time. All right, so let's get right to the quarterback play, because I think that's where a lot of you all are wanting to talk about, probably, I would imagine, because there's a lot of good stuff in this game to talk about, absolutely, because you had Bryce Thompson getting 3 interceptions, which tied the school record for most picks in a game by a single player. Very, very impressive. Probably one of the best. I mean, it wasn't like he had just a bunch of very difficult interceptions, and Pruitt, I think, said it best in his post-game press conference. He's like, he did what he's supposed to do. He made the plays he was supposed to play, or most supposed to make. And I think that's accurate. It wasn't like really any of his 3 interceptions were just big, phenomenal, like one-handed grabs or like a late breaking a ball or anything like that. They were just not great throws by Johnston, who he had a bad night. It was 11-22, 136 yards, 3 picks, no touchdowns. UAB's offense was held to under 250 yards of offense in this game. They were held to 237 yards of offense, only 63 rushing yards, 2.5 yards per carry, only 4.3 yards per play overall for the team. So that it was a really good effort by Tennessee's defense. But let's talk about the quarterbacks, because I think in this game it didn't have Tennessee wasn't presented with a lot of great opportunities heading into this game for good quarterback play. It was either play JT Shrout, and I know a lot of people were praising him for what he did last week, and rightfully so. He looked better than I thought he was going to against South Carolina. But I do still think they masked a lot of his deficiencies in that game the offensive line played really well, and the offensive line didn't play as well in this game as they did last week against South Carolina. For whatever reason, maybe UAB just, I think their scheme is a little different than what the Gamecocks did or do. I just, for whatever reason, Tennessee's freshmen especially seemed more like freshmen in this game. Manya Morris didn't have a great game, at least early on. I think he got better as the game went on, but it wasn't like Tennessee was doing a whole lot blocking for the run game either. They averaged 3.1 yards per carry, 121 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, but it was inefficient in this game. But the big takeaway on offense for Tennessee was a quarterback play. Shrout starts, makes a bad throw. Pruitt benches him and puts in Garantano. Garantano with a cast on his left hand. You could tell it was affecting him, but it didn't. That kind of injury, that kind of surgery, whatever, shouldn't affect your decision making. And Garantano was still making some really poor decisions in this game. Very reminiscent of what he did earlier in the year. It doesn't seem like he can put 2 good games or 2 above average games back to back. He'll have, obviously last week was, I thought, the best game he's had all season when he played against South Carolina last week. And then he comes out and, he doesn't have the worst game of his season this year, but he did not play well, made a really bad decision in the red zone and got greedy there and threw up his back foot, threw kind of backing away and cost Tennessee points. And that they should have at least gotten a field goal out of that drive. And instead they come away with nothing going to the half. Obviously you're still up, 23-0 at halftime, but it could have been 26-0, could have been 30-0 at that point. And then you open things up a little bit more for the second half. Obviously it didn't matter for Tennessee. But if he does something like that against a Kentucky, against a Missouri, against I don't say Vanderbilt, but against this Kentucky or Missouri, we saw that what happened against BYU when he made poor decisions. We saw it happen against Florida when he made bad decisions. We saw it happen against Alabama when he made bad decisions. It cost Tennessee in those games. It will cost Tennessee against Kentucky and Missouri. I do think Brian Maurer is going to be starting next week against Kentucky, though. I think the reason he didn't play in this game is because he's suffered 2 concussions, or at least 2 big blows to the head in back-to-back weeks, and you don't want to rush him back. You didn't need him in this game in order to win, so why risk it? All right, to get to some comments here from you all in the chat, appreciate all of you tuning in to the RTI Post-Game Show. You said my name right. That's good. I'm glad. I'm good. I feel like I'm going to butcher it this time, so I'm not going to try. But to Daryl, I think maybe. So if I said it wrong that time, let me know. Shane Whitehead, can we all agree UAB was highly overrated, but good thing our defense showed up. Our kicker is amazing. Yeah, I think UAB is, I would hesitate to say highly overrated, but they're definitely, I thought there was a chance they were more of a paper tiger in this game than maybe some people are willing to admit. They're good. Don't get me wrong. I still think they have a chance to win the Conference USA, but I also think the Conference USA might be the worst conference in the FBS, and that's saying something considering the Sun Belt's not very good either. You know, the team that Tennessee played earlier this year, Georgia State. They're from the Sun Belt, Conference USA. Those two conferences are probably two of the worst conferences in college football. So it's not maybe it's kind of a backhanded comment saying that UAB is a good Conference USA team. I mean, look what they did on paper. The one team they played this year prior to Saturday, which Tennessee doesn't have a winning record, obviously, but they played one team all season with a winning record, and it was Western Kentucky. And UAB lost to them 20-13. And in that game, UAB threw 4 interceptions. And in this game, they threw 3 interceptions. So you see a theme here when they play a good or decent defense, because Western Kentucky has a pretty good defense too, I think, if I remember looking at the stats correctly. They don't have a good offense, and they have a 500 record, so I would assume they have a pretty decent defense at least. But we've seen now with UAB when they play teams with good to decent or decent to good defenses like Tennessee, who has just hit a rhythm on defense slightly, tend to throw interceptions, and boy, they come in bunches too. So that happened tonight. Tennessee got really good play from their defense tonight. Well, leave some comments here in the chat. Got some from Tadarrell and from Shane, but if anyone else who's watching want to leave some comments here, please do. I would love to have some interaction with you guys. I won't send her very long because I don't imagine there's a lot of enthusiasm and energy and just big flaming hot takes from people after this game, because it was a game where Tennessee took care of business. They covered the spread easily. It was one of the better, I'm not a betting person, but it was one of the better spread covers Tennessee's had under the Pruitt era, because I'm trying to remember, they've been favored. They've not been favored in many games under Jeremy Pruitt. In fact, this year, this was, I believe, probably only the 4th game this season where Tennessee came into it as the favorite, and they were 1-2 in the other ones, and they obviously did cover the spread against UTC. I think, I don't remember what the spread was in that game, but they obviously lost to Georgia State as 25.5-point favorites. They were 3-point favorites over BYU. Lost that game by 3 points in double overtime. Coming today, they were the last line I saw on Vegas Insider. Which I had to look at the line this morning to do the How to Watch article. Tennessee was a 13-point favorite, so they came out and they covered the spread by 10 points in this one. So they came out and as Shane just said, they did what they're supposed to. Tennessee was supposed to come out and get the victory, and didn't necessarily have to be a pretty victory. It didn't necessarily have to be something that was going to wow you, something that was going to make you go, wow, that team should be, that's an outstanding team. That they came out and they did what they had to do. Defense was, I thought defense is just they've hit their mark here since the Mississippi State games, because even against Alabama, I know obviously losing Tagovailoa in that game, that really hurt Alabama's offense, but Mac Jones is still a highly rated quarterback, and they still had all the American type receivers they have, and a really good offensive line, a really good running back. And Tennessee's defense was flying around and doing a really good job against the Tide in that game. We saw them come out against South Carolina. Didn't have the greatest start to the game. Didn't have overall didn't have a great first half. Well, it could have been a lot worse, especially after the way that first touchdown happened. But then came in the second half, shut South Carolina down, shut them out. They held them to 0 of 9 on third down conversions. Came out in this game, and for 57 minutes, shut out the Blazers. It wasn't until garbage time when UAB got a score and got a touchdown. I think now tonight you're seeing some quotes from players, and I think it's reflecting what I'm saying, what I've just said here. Jared Garantano just now said, "We've had some really rough patches at the beginning of the year, but we're starting to find our rhythm." Henry To'oto'o said something very similar earlier. I'm trying to find his quote, because he said something about kind of the same thing essentially. "Our confidence is raising." just a funny way of saying it, but that's what Toto said about just kind of the team in general, saying the confidence is rising for this team. And I think that the confidence is rising. You also have, I think some guys are just, they're finding their roles, they're learning more, they're getting more comfortable. And like I said, they're finding rhythm. They're getting into spots that a month ago I didn't think that some of these guys were going to be able to get to. Darrell Taylor had another sack tonight. He's now got 17 in his career, and I think he has like 4 or 5 on the season now. I think he's got at least 3 in the season. I think he has 4 or 5 on the year. So I mean, that's impressive. I said earlier, Bryce Thompson with the 3 picks that he had. Henry To'oTo'o hasn't had as impressive of performances the last couple of weeks, but he has, not like he's been bad. Tonight he finished with 5 tackles. Mojo Warrior, again, 6 tackles in this game. He had a good job, or did a good job. Darrell Middleton didn't show up as much on the stat sheet, but I thought he had a good game. He also forced the fumble in the first half, I believe. Yeah, I think it was the first half. Yeah, first half of the fumble. They had 4 turnovers in the first half, and Tennessee didn't get it in the second half, but hey, you'll take 4 turnovers no matter what half they come in. I've actually been very impressed by Sean Schamberger this season. He hasn't had, like a big lights out type of season. He's not been a guy who's going to go win any type of awards or be voted all SEC defensive back. For the role they've put him in, especially as a star and as a blitzer, I've been very impressed with Schamberger this year. He is a guy who I actually thought was going to transfer off the roster after last season, because he's the guy we saw on during the game against Vanderbilt dancing on the sidelines in the middle of Tennessee's blowout loss to the Commodores. Schamberger this year, to me, has been a very pleasant surprise for the Vols. Like I said, he's not going to be an all SEC guy. He's not the best player on Tennessee's defense, but he's been surprisingly good and effective, especially in his role tonight. He gets another sack. I think he's got at least 2, maybe not 3 sacks in the season. Finished with 3 tackles, a sack, tackle for loss, and quarterback hurry in this game. He's been very effective as a blitzer for Tennessee. Like I said, Darrell Taylor gets a sack. You had Greg Harrison, I thought, played well too. It wasn't a phenomenal game by Tennessee's defensive line, but Ari Solomon, this was probably his best game. And granted, it's not against an SEC opponent, so take it with a grain of salt. But I thought Solomon played very well. And in a day where Tennessee had some transfer news in basketball that was not so good, which Ben McKee, our staff writer at RTI, we'll discuss that in a podcast probably tomorrow. We'll probably do a kind of a special discussion podcast about that, and maybe have a podcast later on this week, kind of previewing Tennessee's basketball season. But on a day where basketball team got some really bad news about transfer stuff, the football team transfer who did get eligible this season, Ari Solomon, had, like I said, probably his best game of his Tennessee career so far. 4 tackles, including 1 sack, a tackle for loss. And I didn't credit him with a quarterback hurry, but I could have swore he got a quarterback hurry at some point in this game. But anyway, regardless, it was a good game for him. One thing that was concerning to me a little bit, and I know UAB coming into this game had a really good run defense, and I think, I'm not looking too much into it, but Tennessee didn't run the ball super effectively today. If not for a 31-yard run by Ty Chandler, these numbers would have been abysmal. Tennessee finished with 121 yards on 39 carries, 2 touchdowns, obviously one by Juwan Jennings. And man, Jennings is just, he's a do-it-all. I mentioned him in my 5 observations piece and called him a Swiss Army man for Tennessee. He proved last week he can do anything Tennessee needs him to do. He proved it again this week. He now has 20 career touchdowns, and he's done it in just about every single way you can do it as an offensive player. He has 17 receiving touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns, and a rushing score. So, I mean, aside from doing something on special teams or defense, he's done everything he can as an offensive player with Tennessee in his career. And this season, he hasn't thrown for a touchdown, obviously, this season, but he's caught several touchdown passes, and now he's run for 1. I was happy to see Dominic Anderson get involved more in the passing game. He had a 23-yard reception in the first half. He was targeted 4 times, came down with 3 catches. And that was important because you have 5-star tight end Darnell Washington on campus today. And Tennessee had quite a few visitors on campus today, and some very important ones. Darnell Washington and the number 1 athlete, and one of the top tight end prospects, if not the top one. I don't remember what he's ranked. I can't remember. I know he's the 1 athlete. Might be the number 1 tight ends, depending on what service you're looking at, but he was in town on an unofficial visit. He's still saving his official visit to see Knoxville in December, and Tennessee's still slated to get his final official visit of his recruitment. But he was in town on an unofficial visit. You had other guys like RJ Adams, who is a borderline 4-star offensive lineman who was committed to Penn State at one point. He came in on an official visit in Tennessee. Kyrie Miller, who was supposed to be in for last home game against South Carolina, he didn't make it in that weekend, but he did make it in. I think he did make it in this weekend against UAB. I'll kind of message him and see if he did. Jamari Butler was supposed to be in, but he didn't make it in, which is unfortunate for Tennessee. But they had those three guys I just mentioned. They had, there's several other guys that came in on unofficial visits in the 2020 class. That's not including some of these 2021 targets who are in town, who, I mean, they're highly rated kids that are in town too. But Tennessee had several players who were coming in on visits. Desmond Tisdale, the 4-star running back / linebacker from Georgia. He was in on unofficial visit this weekend. That's a big visit for Tennessee. So they had multiple players. Simeon Barrow Jr. was in town, who's a Michigan State commit. There's another guy who I'm trying to remember. D. Beckwith. That's the thing I'm trying to think of. D. Beckwith was also in town. Who he's I think he's a 4-star. He might be a borderline 3-star type of guy, but he's another guy that is a versatile type of athlete, type of guy that Tennessee really values in this 2020 class. So he had a good showing, and surprisingly, a pretty loaded visitor list for it being, a non-conference game and it not being like a premier, like versus Oklahoma versus Oregon type of non-conference game for Tennessee. So you had a pretty good visitor list here for the Vols for the UAB game, and they went out, and it wasn't, the most impressive victory you could have ever had, but it wasn't a fall flat in their face game like BYU or Georgia State. So all in all, I think it was, I think there's a lot of positives to take away from this game, and then negatives too. Like I said, though, I don't think Garantano is going to play a whole lot of quarterback moving forward unless you have more injuries at the quarterback position. I think it's Brad Maurer's spot, obviously, to lose at this point. He did play tonight because, like I said earlier, you want to keep him safe. You want to make sure he's healthy for the stretch run that you have coming up against, 3 SEC opponents. I think Maurer is going to start next weekend in Lexington against Kentucky. I think it's safe. It's better to be safe than sorry when you've had a guy hit 2 potential concussions, at least 2, like I said, big blows to the head, where if they weren't concussions, then there's still injuries that kept him out of games. It's better to be safe than sorry and not play him in this game when you don't need him to, when you're going to need him and need better quarterback play against the Wildcats, against the Tigers, and against the Commodores. I mean, Vanderbilt's shown they can pull off upsets this year if the team lets them. I mean, Missouri did not play well at all, and like I said, let them get that upset. So Tennessee, I think Brad Maurer will be your starting quarterback moving forward. I would be pretty surprised. I think tonight also showed, yes, JT Stroud got the start, but staff still doesn't trust him a whole lot. Like I said, I know a lot of people got excited about him last week, and I thought he had a great game last week. He played better than I thought he was going to, but I still thought even that game that they were masking deficiencies of his, and that's why I don't recall Juwan Jennings taking a Wildcat snap at quarterback with Garantano in the game. I think all his Wildcat quarterback plays came with Stroud in the game, and the only reason I think Stroud came back in that game was because Garantano got hurt and had to be out, and he was out for the game, and they put Stroud in quarterback, and obviously he played well. And I don't think the staff, they weren't surprised by his ability to throw the ball deep, and connected with Callaway on that 55-yard touchdown. I think that's what it was. Yeah, it was a Callaway on that deep pass. They weren't surprised with that. I think they were a little surprised with the fact that he moved around the pocket well. He showed some good pocket awareness, but he made some mistakes in the game still that some poor throws here and there. But you obviously overlooked it because Tennessee got a big victory in this game. Very first throw he made was a bad throw. He made a couple other bad throws that you could tell he was forcing it. One, he threw deep downfield. It was a really beautiful pass as far as it was a laser on a point, but he threw the double coverage. He threw it with looked like one-on-one coverage, but the safety was massed over onto the middle of the field. And Trout should have been able to see that, and he didn't. But he's also a redshirt freshman who's pretty raw and still learning the position overall, so you're more willing to be forgiving of him of those mistakes. Whereas Jarrett Garantano throwing off his back foot into the end zone, you're not as forgiving with him because he is a fourth-year player who should know better. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. He should know better than what he did for that one. So To me, I don't think I don't know that you'll see all three quarterbacks again moving forward unless they, like I said, unless they're injuries, unless Mauer can't go or Mauer gets hurt in a game again because that's happened to him every single game he's played at this point. I guess except for Florida, but it's happened every single start he's played this season. He's gotten hurt and hasn't been able to finish. So unless that happens, I think you'll probably just see Mauer and obviously maybe a little bit of Jennings in the Wildcat. But I think you'll see just Mauer moving forward and maybe Garantano sprinkled in here and there. But even then, though, I mean, I don't see the I don't see the reasoning or the urgency to play Garantano against Kentucky, against Missouri, against Vanderbilt, unless you just have to. Because I think Mauer does everything better. He's a little more careless with the football overall. But I mean, man, Garantano's been careless with the football this season too. I mean, he's thrown an interception in almost every game he's played this season. I think he did one. I guess he actually went a little stretch there without doing it. He didn't throw one against Mississippi State. He didn't throw one against Alabama. And then he didn't throw one against South Carolina. So, I mean, actually, until tonight, he actually had a little bit of a streak there again, of a completion streak without tossing a pick. So, earlier in the year, though, I think he did throw one in every game against an FBS opponent because he didn't against UTC, but he definitely did against BYU. He definitely did against Georgia State. Definitely did against Florida. I think he had two in that game, actually. But still, did he against? He didn't play long enough against Georgia to register that. But anyway, guys, leave some more comments here in the chat. I probably won't stand too much longer. I'm not getting a ton of interaction from people, but it's fine. I didn't expect a whole lot from tonight, but I got enough interaction from people on Twitter that I figured I'll hop on here for about half an hour or so. And this time I'm only going to stay on for half an hour. Not like the Bama game where I said I'm only going to be on here for about half an hour, and then I was on for a whole hour because we got to talking about the officiating in that game. We get talking about ESPN and the sideline reporters smoking cigars and stuff. We don't have nearly as much controversy from this game to talk about, so I won't be on here, for super long this time. But the officiating in this game actually wasn't great either. But I don't want to harp on it too much because, whatever. Tennessee got called for 3 penalties for 5 yards because some of the penalties they had called for right there at the goal line that had Tennessee backed up at their own goal line that only knocked them back like half a yard or a yard. So you had one penalty that actually did account for something, which I think was a false start, maybe. Tennessee played pretty clean tonight, but you could have called the targeting call. They called it roughing the passer or late hit, whatever it was on UAB, but they definitely could have called a little more of an egregious penalty there, maybe targeting. They should have called, and not even should have. It definitely should have been targeting. Go back and watch the replay of that. Guy leads with his helmet, goes in with the intent. It was a targeting intent. I mean, I don't know how I should word it. An intent to go in at Trey Smith, to injure, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else you would word it, how else you'd say it. It should have been targeting, but I'm not going to go on too deep on that. I mean, this is a game where there wasn't a whole lot of stuff that really stood out from as far as blown calls in this game. It was actually, a fairly well officiated game, but that to me was extremely irritating. And as much as these officials are told to, be responsive to targeting calls, to kind of err on the side of caution with those and maybe call them more than call, because they always go back and review it, so you can always go back and take it away. I don't know why that wasn't called targeting. They obviously looked at it because they called a penalty on the play in general, but why was it not targeting? It didn't end up, hurting Trey Smith or anything like that, or, knock him out of the game or anything, but could you imagine if that call or that non-call resulted in a Trey Smith injury? A lot of fans would be livid, and they were obviously very livid after the Alabama game. And I think if Tennessee lost to South Carolina, you might have seen a large Big Orange mob go down to Birmingham to the SEC offices because the officiating in that game is also horrendous. But Tennessee now, I'm going to kind of close out here talking about Tennessee's chances moving forward to get to a bowl game, which, like I said earlier in the show, a month ago, I remember heading into the Georgia game, because I don't think it was after the Georgia game. I'm pretty sure it was before the Georgia game. It might have been afterwards. I don't know. It was either right before or right after the Georgia game. On teamrankings.com, they gave Tennessee a 5% chance of making a bowl game heading into this weekend's game against UAB, I'm pretty sure that had gone up to almost like a 50-50. It was like a 40-something% chance. So you've had an astronomical jump in Tennessee's chances of getting to a bowl game. Now that they've beaten UAB, I don't think it'd jump a whole lot because I think Tennessee was favored like 80-something% to beat UAB. But now, I mean, I think Tennessee. I don't know if they'll be favored against Kentucky or not on the road. It'll be a toss-up, I think, kind of from a Vegas perspective. It kind of depends on what Kentucky's quarterback situation is like. If they play Sawyer Smith, I actually think that gives them a worse chance of winning because Lynn Bowden, however you say his name, he's been really good at the quarterback form. He's not obviously a great passer, but he's so good as a runner and so dynamic as an athlete that. And Sawyer Smith's been so bad this year. I mean, if he starts at quarterback for the Wildcats, I almost think that gives Tennessee a better chance of winning than Lynn Bowden playing there. Maybe they do both. What we've seen what Tennessee do with Juwan Jennings the past couple weeks of still play Bowden or Bowden, whatever his name is, at kind of a Wildcat quarterback here for a few snaps here and there, and kind of spell Sawyer Smith, and maybe that's what happens. But either way, that's going to be a very close line. I don't anticipate Kentucky being favored by more than a field goal if they are favored in that game. Against Missouri, it'll be at Missouri, and Tennessee should be an underdog in that game. But at the same time, though, Missouri is having a bye week now, I think. Yeah, they have a bye week this week. Tennessee will play Kentucky next weekend, and then they'll be on a bye week before they play Missouri. Before Missouri plays Tennessee, they play Georgia, Kentucky, or Georgia and Florida in back-to-back games. So you're looking at Tennessee going on a bye week, then facing Missouri after Missouri has played the two toughest teams on their schedule in back-to-back weeks. And granted, Missouri at home compared to what they are on the road, they're two very different teams on the road versus at home, and that's what that game still worries me more than I think it does some Vol fans, because I just look at the Tigers' home road splits and they're just a lot better of a team in Columbia than they are on the road. But that's still obviously a very winnable game. I don't imagine Tennessee will be heavy underdogs in that game. It'll probably be between 7 to 10 points is what I'd imagine that Missouri would be favored in that game. And Tennessee should definitely be favorites against Vanderbilt at home in Knoxville for the season finale, because Vanderbilt now is, I think, 2-6 on the year, so they're about to be eliminated from bowl contention, and they will be in their next. Well, actually, I don't know who Vanderbilt plays next. Let me look that up because I'm just curious now who their next opponent's going to be. Ooh, it's Florida. Yeah, they're going to lose that game then. Well, Vanderbilt win another game before they play Tennessee. Let's see, they play Florida, Kentucky, and ETSU. So they should be ETSU, I guess. So Vanderbilt should be 3-8 when they play the Vols. So yeah, but still, they should be favored in that one. Tennessee has a very good chance to go at 6-6. They have a decent chance of being able to go 7-5 if they get decent quarterback play, and if the offensive defensive lines both continue to improve and play competently like they have been. A couple more comments from you guys here. William Poole said, "Did anyone see the garbage Memphis fans trying to troll us today?" Oh boy, why? Memphis fans are petty, just like their head coach Penny. But man, why are they bringing up Tennessee football when College Game Day is there? I mean, I'm happy for Memphis, for the people I know who are from that area and over there, because that's cool. I mean, I don't think College Game Day's ever been there before. And I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure they've never been to Memphis before for football. Basketball's gotten a lot of attention from ESPN and stuff, but pretty sure the football team has never had that type of attention on them. And being the kind of big matchup that them and SMU was. But why would they do that? Use that moment of their football team being in the spotlight, their football team getting all this attention, to try and trash talk a Tennessee program that they're 1-22 or 1-21 against or something like that. I mean, they've gotten one win in like 23, 24 tries. So I don't understand Memphis's line of reasoning there, especially when that Tennessee's dominated them in football. Tennessee basketball beat them last year in Memphis. I know obviously this year this Memphis team's going to be this Memphis team is going to be a lot different, probably a lot better than last year's Memphis team, and this football team or basketball team for Tennessee is going to be quite a bit worse because especially now with Uroš Pavčić not going to be able to play, it doesn't look very good. But I just don't understand it, man. They had no reason to do that. It looked stupid. It looked petty. And a lot of ball fans saying, what are you doing? So, yeah, I'm with you, William. It was kind of just dumb. Kind of last thing here from Walter Henderson. Garantano has played better these past 2 games than he has been playing his whole college career. He did last game, but not today. Today, he looked more like he did at the beginning of the year rather than he did last game, and then what he looked like last year. Last year, he had like 2 bad games last season against Florida, and then when he was probably really maybe shouldn't have played against Vanderbilt in the last game of the season. Otherwise, I mean, he looked fine or good in every other game he played last year. Obviously against Auburn and Kentucky, those were his 2 best games. I thought he played well and looked good against South Carolina last year too. He seems to play well against South Carolina for whatever reason. And then he looked okay in other games. And he looked okay against West Virginia. He looked okay. He didn't play very much against Alabama. He got knocked out of that game. He didn't play but a couple snaps against Missouri before he got knocked out of that game. So I'm trying to remember the games he played in. The other non-conference games, I mean, he looked fine in because they were against bad opponents. But I guess he looked okay against Georgia too in that game, actually. Yeah. But he didn't. The only games he played badly in last year were against Florida and against Vanderbilt. This year he played mediocre against Georgia State. He played badly against BYU. And he played well against UTC, that's UTZ. And he played badly against Florida. And then he came out and he played well enough against Mississippi State. He played. It was a mixed bag against Alabama. Obviously, it gets skewed a lot more negatively because of the way that game ended and some of the throws he made in that game. But I would say overall probably bad in that one. I know Pruitt afterwards was very complimentary of him and saying he played probably his best game of the year before the South Carolina game. I didn't see it, but he's a head coach, so maybe he's obviously he's smarter than I am. But I thought overall it still kind of skewed that one more towards kind of bad than good. I think it's obviously against South Carolina, comes out and plays his best game of the season, I thought. Looked really good, and I think would have finished that game out with maybe 300 yards passing if he doesn't get hurt on that really hard hit when he threw the touchdown pass to Jawan Jennings. So to me, it's been a mystery why he's been so up and down this season, but he has been. So, all right. Walter says, if we had the coaching staff we had now when Josh Dobbs, we could have won the – no, wait a minute. We had the coaching staff – oh, okay. I thought you were saying if Tennessee had Butch Jones' coaching staff now, they would have won the East. And I was like, no, hold up a second. But you're saying if Tennessee had the coaching staff now with Pruitt and them back in like 2016, 2015, Tennessee would have won the East. I hesitate to outright say yes, but I would say that Tennessee would have gotten more out of those players and probably more out of the team back then. So you can extrapolate from that. Then maybe, yeah, they probably would have won the East because they should have won the East in 2016. And they arguably should have won the East in 2015. That 2015 season gets overlooked a little bit more than the 2016 season. But, man, that was a year where Tennessee could have taken people by storm and really just upset some people because they had Oklahoma on the ropes. They had Florida on the ropes on the road. They played Alabama down to the wire in that game. They had a lead against Arkansas early and just didn't, and they just got out physical by the Razorbacks in that game. I actually remember so little from that game because I just, for whatever reason, do not remember that Arkansas game from 2015. But that was a year where Tennessee absolutely could have been just a 1 or 2 loss team that year with, how well they played in the first halves of games, but just could not close out in the second half. But that's a whole different conversation for a different day. This year, Tennessee, after their 1-4 start, they've now won 3 of the last 4 games. They, I think, have a very strong chance of getting to a bowl game and have a decent shot at winning out and finishing 7-5. Before the season began, I predicted this team to go 7-5. If they go 7-5, it will definitely not be how I thought it was going to be, and definitely not how I think a lot of people thought it would be if Tennessee finished 7-5. I don't know anyone who would have predicted that version of 7-5. But even 6-6, obviously, for the record from last season, it'll be a slight improvement. But I think also from the way this season began, if you go from 1-4 to finishing the season 5-2, did I do that math correctly? Yeah, 5-2. to get the 6-6, that would be thoroughly impressive. It's not like a SEC Coach of the Year candidate worthy or anything like that. That's going to go to, I guess, I don't know, Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Dan Mullen. One of those guys probably will get that award. It might be an Orgeron, actually, depending on what LSU does against Bama. It might be an Orgeron. But it won't be like an SEC Coach of the Year type of award, season for Tennessee, but it would be thoroughly impressive. And also you could argue, well, what if Tennessee does beat Georgia State? What if they do beat BYU? They keep looking at an 8-9 win season. That's an interesting conversation, I think, to have when or if it happens. But no one special says, how about those announcers on TV? God bless. The ESPNU guys are awful. That's where we're going to end this show. I'm going to go on a little rant here, I guess, about the ESPNU guys, because they were horrible all night. I know Juwan Jennings called himself the Juice Man in that little video thing they did with him. But God, they were trying so hard to make Juice Man a thing. It just reminded me of Mean Girls, where they're saying fetch is not a fetch. Don't stop trying to make fetch happen. Stop trying to make Juice Man happen, man. God, y'all are they're beating it to death like it was a thing that he's always gone by his entire life. And then you had Jarrett Tano. You had Tyler Chandler. There was another thing they did later on in the game that was just kind of like, what are we doing here, folks? It was awful. And I try not to be too hard on the play-by-play and color guys, because I've done play-by-play and stuff for a streaming service for high school football. So I know it can be kind of difficult on the fly to do stuff and to get some things right here and there. But just they kept on and on and on and on about Garantano's wrist. They kept on and on and on about Juice Man. They just hit the same 3 or 4 points over and over and over again. It just felt like they did their just kind of minimal homework for this game. And I get it. They're probably not super excited about calling Tennessee and UAB. It's a 3-5 Tennessee team versus a UAB team that, yes, 6-1 and looking for an upset, but hasn't played a lot of good teams this year. It's not like they have a lot of hype around them. It's not like they're a media darling group of 5 team like a UCF or SMU or Memphis. It wasn't like it was one of those teams. It was a UAB team that has a good record, but they've played really bad teams. So I get it. They're probably not very amped up for it. I understand that. But man, it was not a good broadcast crew. It was not one that I will. Hopefully Tennessee never gets that kind of broadcast crew ever again. Although I'm imagining next year when they play a non-conference opponent, that's an FCS school or kind of a trash non-Power 5 school. They'll get kind of bottom of the barrel type of guys again, but hopefully it's not that bad. The color guy never. I don't think he ever stopped calling Garantano Geritano or Geraton or whatever he was saying. It was awful. There's just a lot of times tonight that it was bad. But when I heard comments on Twitter with someone saying, did Vernon Gary from CBS did they train these guys? Were these their underlings, their proteges? Not even. Well, no. Vern was pretty bad there in his later years as the broadcaster of getting names wrong and just not doing a great job. Gary Danielson, I've never been a huge fan of. Most ball fans aren't huge fans of Gary Danielson. Yes, Matt and Kelly, this is live, but I'm actually probably about to go off here in a second. One last thing, though. Walter Henderson asked, is Maurer hurt? Yes. If this was a game against, if Tennessee was playing Kentucky or Missouri this weekend, I think Maurer would have played in this game. Maybe not, but I think he might have played in this game. But I think the staff felt good enough about their offense, and I think especially their defense, to not risk Maurer in this game and to keep him on the bench because he suffered 2 concussions back-to-back weeks. It's better to be safe than sorry with that kind of injury, especially with any injury. Really, sometimes it's better to be safe than sorry, but especially with head injury, head trauma. The concussion is head trauma. It's not just like a bruise, or it's not just like a headache. It is legitimate trauma to your brain. The most important part of your body, your heart and your brain, are your 2 most important parts of your body, and having any type of trauma to your brain is not good. So I don't fault them for sitting him in this game and not playing him. I think we'll see him, to answer your question, Matt and Kelly. I was actually about to get there. I do think we'll see him start against the Wildcats in Lexington. I would be a little surprised if he doesn't. Maybe they're still being cautious with him at that point, but I think he does start. If he doesn't start that game, I do think he starts against Missouri, because you'll have had this week against Kentucky off, and then you'll have the bye week off too. But I do think he starts in Lexington against the Wildcats. All right, I said I was going to go half an hour. I've gone 45 minutes. I always do this. Y'all just keep me on here longer than I ever anticipate doing it. Last comment here, G White 713 says, JG did what he had to do. Glad to see Pruitt light him up after another pick. Defense was superb. If Vern and Gary had been active in the 90s when we were competing for championships, our fan base would probably have a better opinion of them. I think that's fair. But also, I do think Vern Lundquist, he graded on me, because I would watch other CBS games too, and he wasn't very good. But thanks, Matt and Kelly. You said this was fun. Thank you. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do subscribe. If anyone else is watching hasn't subscribed, this is the shameless plug section of the live show. Please do subscribe to the Rocky Top Insider YouTube channel here, so you can see and turn on notifications so you can see when we go live. We also post a ton of video content, not just of live shows, but we'll have stuff of Tennessee's players here in a little bit up on the YouTube channel. After the game here, maybe some celebration stuff too. We do practice videos, from Tennessee's practices, player availability throughout the week, our own podcast that we do, the RTI podcast, and also the RTI and VR2 recruiting podcast that we do with Vol Recruiting Reports. Those get put into video form as well. So if you listen to the regular podcast that way, we appreciate that a lot. But one way that we have a lot of people interact is by listening/watching here on YouTube and leaving comments on the video, and then I'll reply back to them sometimes, or we'll take some into consideration for the next show. But if you haven't already subscribed, please do. If you want to give this video a like, please do. I appreciate that very much. The more likes the videos get, the better it helps kind of YouTube algorithm, and it shows up more and helps our channel more and helps us get more content for you guys as well. But I am Nathaniel Rutherford. I'm the managing editor of RockyTopInsider.com. Thank you all so much. I'm very appreciative of all of you who tune in. I had more viewership in this one than I thought I was going to. So I'm very thankful for all of you who tuned in for this live show after this one. We'll be doing one hopefully next week against Kentucky as well. It's going to be an interesting kind of living situation for me next week. So I should hopefully be able to do a live show. If not, I'll keep you updated on that one. But I'm going to do my best to do a live show for you guys after the Kentucky game next week. We do it after every single football game. We'll probably do something after basketball games this year as well, especially kind of the big non-conference games. And then imagine after a lot of the SEC games, we'll try to do some as well. Keep you updated on that one moving forward. We're hopefully going to be expanding some of our video coverage and stuff of Tennessee football as well. But like I said, give this a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. We're on social media everywhere: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, obviously YouTube. We're just Rocky Top Insider on all of those. If you want to follow me, I am at Mr_Rutherford on Twitter. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the RTI Post-Game Show. You guys are fantastic. We appreciate it very much. We'll be back again next week.